already badged, already credentialed, already had cool vests, and we instantly had this small army of teams to be available. So it's not just for earthquakes, although I will say that phrase a lot today. This is our team, and this is a three-way partnership that you see represented here between a citizen-driven nonprofit, a municipality, and a fire district. So we started this in 2011, and right away, month one, year one, the fire district came on board and said, we love what you're doing it with our full blessing, and we would like to be strong supporters of you. The city didn't really want to have anything to do with us. They were a little confused by what we were doing for this first several years until someone there got the idea of, oh, this is actually a really good thing. And then the city joined us about maybe 5-6 years in a very big way. We started first with a part-time emergency manager. That position then transformed into a full-time emergency manager after much arguing and gnashing of teeth and convincing them that it was important. And you see that here in this photo where we've got our deputy chief, our chief from fire there. We've got our emergency manager, Ann, who we stole from California several years ago. Then myself, my executive director, and our program director. In essence, this photo shows you this is a team. So everything that I refer to today, I am mostly referring to as our partnership. So I mentioned some of you guys have probably been down here to visit the island. This is us. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about a little bit of the background and specifically everything. We will come back to how you can do this on Whidbey, how this can become something that your community engages with as well. After we go through the basics and our partnerships, we're going to do a few deep dives into some items that I think would be of particular interest to you all. And then talk a little bit about marketing and how do we get the word out there within our community and things that you could replicate on your islands as well. And then an invitation, actually, we have launched a new nonprofit. We are spinning out of the nonprofit Bainbridge Prepares, a new nonprofit called Prepare Your Community. And that one is to take the model that we are creating, that we have worked on for almost 15 years now, and to put it into a website and a mobile app and give it away for free, up and down the West Coast and then beyond. I'll give you a sneak peek of what that looks like. That'll be available later on this year. So this is who we are. We've got about 25,000 folks on this island, assuming it's not rush hour. Now, as you all may know, we have a highway going through us that connects our ferry to the bridge, which heads out to the Olympic Peninsula. That highway is often, twice a day, full of folks who don't live here, who are commuting through. So some of what I'm going to be talking about in terms of our disaster hubs that we've developed, we are developing it such that if the earthquake happens and it is 4:30 p.m. on a weekday and we are in the middle of rush hour and our highway is chock full of folks who don't live here, we're thinking through what do we do to support those folks as well. Now, a lot of why I started this was to solve a math problem, frankly. We have on one hand, we have 25,000 or so residents. On the other hand, we only have a handful of professional level first responders. You can see here some of the numbers. So COBE is an acronym for City of Bainbridge Island. BIPD is our police department. BIFD is our fire department. Not all the city employees are trained as first responders. Some are. But in general, we have a handful of professional first responders on the island at any given time and 25,000 or so plus residents. That math does not work in a wide-scale emergency. It does work for everyday emergencies. It works whenever the police need to do something, the fire department needs to do something, and they are small, disparate events. It doesn't work if the entire island, if the entire region is suffering under something where they cannot get mutual aid, right? So if we have a big set of fires, our fire department can get mutual aid from several other fire departments. That is not possible in an earthquake. That's not possible whether the bridge is down or not, whether the ferries are running down or not, because the entire region has been affected. We've currently got 750 plus volunteers. We keep growing. We've recently, in recent years, we're now the largest service organization, nonprofit in Kitsap County. And we'll get into a little bit of what that looks like. Like, well, what do you do when you're not in meetings planning for an earthquake? We actually have a lot of action things too, live events that we support. And this is something that speaks to the social connections of why some of our volunteers, many of our volunteers work with us. It's for the social connections. It's for the camaraderie. It's for the, I want to feel like I am making a difference, both in the future, post-disaster, and now, today, in normal times. So here's a quick timeline. Started this 2011. I want to call your attention to a few key things on here. We didn't form this thing until a proper 501c3 until 5 years in. We were just kind of this nebulous thing, this movement, this blob, this group of citizens who had fire department blessing and were pushing this boulder forward, getting the community excited and educated about this. When the city joined us, it was great because all of a sudden we had a credentialing organization. So all of our folks are badged. We do background checks, same background checks that we use with our police officers. The badges also show what different people are certified on. We have many people that are certified in more than one team. So they could be a ham operator for communications. They could also be one of our wilderness first responders who are trained to be useful in a medical scenario, engaging with our medical reserve corps. Second thing to call your attention to is the first time that our emergency manager at the city, part-time, was able to go full-time with budget in 2018. That was a big win with our city council and our city manager. We used to be a mayoral system back in the day. We switched a number of years ago to a council plus city manager system. And we have a great relationship with them. And they have been very supportive of this work. Last thing I'll call your attention to is I'd like you to note when we did our first 2 paid positions at the nonprofit in 2021. Please note that is a decade after we started. You do not need money to start this. And don't let anybody tell you, oh, we can't do that unless we raise X, Y, or Z in funding. That is simply not true. You can do this on a shoestring budget, just like we did, where it's basically just citizens supporting it. The money will come later. Okay, so these are the 3 entities that I referred to. And I'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail. So first with the city. The city, a lot of the city staff are part of these teams that we have here, but a huge portion of several of these teams are actual citizens, just normal folks like you and me. So for instance, you'll see there at the middle, the flotilla. Many of you probably have read about the mosquito fleet that we used to have before we had ferry systems and WashDOT took that over back in the Puget Sound. We have recreated the mosquito fleet because we're going to be assuming that the ferries are not running and that the large docks are not able to accept those ferries even when those boats are running. So we're constantly recruiting for flotilla. So the flotilla sits underneath the city in terms of the organizational chart, but that is 100%, other than the team lead, made up by normal residents, normal citizens like you and me. And that type of horse trading goes on a lot between the 3 entities. We have a favorite saying from one of our previous presidents, I think it was Wilson, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you don't care who gets the credit. And we don't. So we try to act relatively egoless as we go. Not one team, one entity is not trying to claim credit. For the others, we just don't care. If we get it done, great. If we need to rotate the face of the partnership for, say, a grant that can only go to fire districts, we do so. If we need to rotate it for something that would bog down the city and the fire department in red tape, but a privately held, citizen-driven nonprofit can get away with it, we rotate that face. So there's a lot of horse trading that happens between the 3 entities. Now for fire, this is mostly not citizens. This is, pro-level, highly trained firefighters and their support staff. The one area that we do get involved in is that second item in there, community risk reduction, where we have our people doing a lot of the training. So for instance, the Stop the Bleed training and the community outreach and CPR, so that's where you can get citizens that can get certified and then they become a force multiplier. And then of course we have the nonprofit. Now, I just presented to you this really beautiful org chart. I do not want you to think that we started out this way. In fact, if I go back, look in the lower left-hand corner. Do you see version 5.4? So the way I do org charts, that means that there has been 53 previous versions of this org chart over the past 14 years. So I should show you sometime what some of the early ones looked like because they were laughable. But we were growing organically, which is a very nice way to say when I would have volunteers show up, I would find out their passions, and we would create a team around that. Because eventually I knew we would have teams for everything. The earthquake will affect literally every walk of life. So we knew eventually we're going to have teams that work on every aspect of life. But please don't think that we got there in some straight, direct, linear, well thought out fashion. It was more of this, of how we grow. So early on, we had some folks that had passion for pets. So we made a pet team. We had a pet team before we had a water team. And I can tell you, in the grand scheme of things, water is pretty darn high in terms of having potable water so you can continue to make good decisions. But that sense of organic growth is part of what allowed us to grow so quickly because we were able to engage with people and let them pursue their passions with some guidance and some direction. Okay, so for our teams, this is the general composition of the teams. MRC stands for Medical Reserve Corps. MYN stands for Map Your Neighborhood. That is a neighborhood by neighbor, street by street program that I'll talk about in a few minutes. CERT is a national program that stands for Community Emergency Response Team. MRC, the Medical Reserve Corps, that's also a federal program. Now, pre-pandemic, that big orange thing, slice of the pie, you see that is the MRC, was smaller than the smallest sliver that you see up there labeled for hubs management. We could not get the attention of medical license holders and get them interested in this subject because kind of by definition, those folks are very, very busy, right? They're working at the hospital, they're working at the ER, they've got their own private practices. It is hard to get their attention. And then the pandemic happened and they all had to stop working. And if there's something that you want to do to drive a medical license holder insane, it's tell them they can't help people. And so our MRC grew in droves through the pandemic because people wanted to get re-engaged and they wanted to help people. And now they're our largest team by far. I relate that to you because as you're thinking about growing Whidbey, there's certain aspects where you will find high growth areas within certain teams and others where they just have to kind of chug along. Our MRC chugged along at a very low level for several years before we found an opportunity to let it spike. And it was able to grow because that small team was ready for it. They just needed that outside impetus to do so. Okay, so one thing that I like to set expectations with folks, and we learned this lesson maybe 4 or 5 years ago. We actually had public meetings where people were saying, instead of calling 911, how do we get a hold of you guys? To which point, people like Eric and and Lesage, the professional emergency management people, just about have coronaries when they hear that. So we had to just make crystal clear that people knew you are not calling Bainbridge Prepares when you should be calling 911. In fact, The only time you should call us is when 911 literally doesn't work because the entire infrastructure has been broken. So created this slide. If it is relatively normal emergencies, which you see down there at the bottom, we're not involved. And we're probably not going to be activated at all, right? That's where we are letting the professionals do what they do. In fact, that's part of another reason why we started this was one was to solve that math problem of first responders to residents, but the second was to free up the professionals to let them do their job. Legally, fire departments can't stop to fight one fire before they conduct what's known as a windshield survey of their service area. They have to survey the entire area, and then the chiefs make the difficult decisions of which fires are we going to fight first, second, third. They're not allowed to stop at the very first one because something much worse could be just down the road. Well, think of that writ large in an earthquake scenario. So that's when mutual aid is not available, and it's when we as citizens want to free up the professionals, both the professional emergency manager types and the professional fire and police and law enforcement types to do their jobs, to work on the core infrastructure and not have to come and babysit us out in the neighborhoods and in the rural areas. That middle section, 911 is still available. All through the pandemic, you could call 911. But we were activated. We ran all of the high throughput vaccine clinics around here. We gathered all the PPE in the early days and then redistributed it to those first responders, the professionals. But that was an official request. Hey, nonprofit, can you engage with us on this? And then the top one there, that's the big kahuna, right? That's what we are planning for, worst possible scenario, where earthquake is so large and so widespread that all of our systems go down. And 911 is not available, cell phones aren't available, and our volunteers are then trained to know, oh, that is when we self-activate, and that is when we report to the disaster hubs, which have ham radio operators and satellite connections, and then we get to take our dues from the city manager, the emergency manager, in our case, Ann Lesage, and the fire chief and police chief. All right, now I'm not going to ask you to read this slide because it is a whole lot of text. What I would like to call your attention to is that red starburst up in the upper left-hand corner. Everything above that line is what we work on a daily basis with all of our volunteers and our 2 paid staff. It's a whole lot of education-focused stuff. Frankly, it is a lot of marketing. It's trying to figure out how to break through the clutter of everyone's busy lives to say, by the way, you live on an island and you live in earthquake country. You might want to think through what that means. Everything below that line is what actually happens when the earthquake happens. It's everything that happens in the hours to days to weeks to months afterwards, and it's how our teams have moved into action. So we move from a whole lot of education and planning above the red line down into straight up action day after day, week after week. Okay, let me take you, that was a quick overview. Let me take you on 4 deep dives. First one being earthquake preparedness. So there's something called ICS, Incident Command System. It is let's call it a language. It's a framework that all of the professionals know, right? So like Eric probably dreams in ICS terms right at night. Fire chiefs think in terms of this. It's a language that they all speak, that they are trained in from FEMA at the federal level all the way down into the regions and the states and the counties and municipalities. And when you and I, when normal citizens want to engage with professional levels and be useful, not be a pain in the butt or a hindrance, we need to be able to speak their language. So all of our folks have to go through ICS training. Now, Eric's probably going to yell at me later for this, but it's probably the most boring 90 minutes ever that of PowerPoint you will sit through studying these FEMA resources, but it is really darn important so that you know what you're doing and so you can speak the right language. An example of ICS is what you see on the screen here with this org chart. So in an earthquake, our city hall closes, our emergency operations center opens up, and there's a bunch of different section chiefs. Where we fit in, where citizens can fit in and be useful, is under the ops section, the operations section. And you see there, the first set are the professional level folks, police and fire and the public work folks. Then you start to get into, oh, we could expand that, because that's only so many people per municipality, per county. If you can create a force multiplier of trained citizens who know what they are doing and know how to take orders from the professionals, all of a sudden you get some really exciting results. And that's what you can see here, is you can start to reach into all these different aspects of an island's life, a community's life, and have a positive impact. Okay, so I've mentioned disaster hubs a few times. This is something that is both unique to us and not unique to us. So when I was writing my book, I studied different towns all across the country and their responses, and I found a number of examples of hubs of different flavors. I don't think any of them were called hubs. They all had various names. Mostly they were acronyms. We have way too many acronyms. We try to stay away from them when we can, but it's hard. So what we did is we just stole from all of those cool different ideas of other towns to put together something that is unique. So our version of a disaster hub is this, the bullets that you see there, and this is a map of the island that you see on the other side of your screen, noting the different hubs that we have currently. The goal is to have a hub that is within walking distance, 1.5 miles is the target, of every home on the island. Walking is an important distinction there. This is post-earthquake. Elevation change is going to make most of the roads impassable, either short-term or even medium to long-term. Whether we're talking big giant trees that can eventually be cleared with chainsaw crews, or elevation change where the roads are broken and that will not be fixed on a timely basis. So walking distance is pretty darn important. Post-earthquake, you all are walking. At the most, you're using a bicycle for sections of your journey. But what we have within these disaster hubs is, first and foremost, it's official information. It's what we've done is we selected locations, and this is Bloedel Reserve as an example at the very top there. That is a Botanical Gardens campus. Battle Point Park, you see on the far left-hand side there. That's just one of our big, beautiful, gorgeous parks from Parks Department. Fort Ward, down at the very bottom, the south end of the island, is an old World War II era bakery that has been converted into a really neat community building down there. So we have all different types of buildings, but the common theme was, I knew from writing the book that people naturally want to gravitate towards big open areas after an earthquake, looking for information, and there is a part in the back of our brain that just says, I need to get away from big buildings and big trees. So a lot of these are campuses that have big pastures or fields where people are naturally going to walk towards and congregate. So we thought, and the sales pitch to each of these campus owners was, you're going to have a whole bunch of islanders show up in your front lawns or in your pastures. Would you like some help thinking through what you're going to do with those people? And so far, everybody actually said yes. So it's a place you can go for official information because each one of these locations has ham radio equipment installed, and we have ham radio operators that have committed to that is where they walk to set up the equipment and to be able to talk to the Emergency Operations Center, the EOC. It's also where people can go for limited, targeted care. So that could be psychological first aid. We basically kind of rated the psychotherapy guild that we have here on the island, and I'm blessed enough to be married to a clinical social worker, so we rated all of her friends. This is where all of the counselor types sit on this team. They've done a number of really neat things over the years. They've created a psychological first aid course that we ask all of our volunteers to go through, but then they also are divided up and assigned a hub that they will walk to, where they will be able to offer psychological first aid. Then, of course, regular first aid, targeted medical care is going to be provided there, both through our Medical Reserve Corps, and that is both medical license holders and wilderness first responder and wilderness first aid folks. That program, Wilderness First Responder and Wilderness First Aid, that's a 2-week or a 2-day course. I cannot recommend that highly enough. It's a lifesaver, quite literally. We run those classes every 6 months. They're not cheap to put on, but in areas like we are in the Pacific Northwest, it appeals to a wide number of folks. It appeals to the people who are going out to the Olympics to go backpacking. It appeals to folks who have newly retired and are now watching over their grandbabies and want to know what to do when something might happen and they've got their grandbabies at the house. Wide variety of folks get interested in the wilderness first responder, first aid courses. And what that's allowed us to do is build up a small army of trained folks who are actually really useful. They're useful if they are on scene and a firefighter walks in, they speak the same language because we have our firefighters show up at the Wilderness First Responder events and mentor them. And I tell you what, it works great both ways. Our residents love having a full-on firefighter say, I hear you using this phrase that you learned in your textbook. We actually use this similar phrase, and now we can start to literally speak the same language. And the firefighters, it builds trust. When they come to the event and they see these normal citizens who are actually doing good work, they go, oh, I didn't realize that folks could do that just after 2 weeks of training. You guys are going to be pretty darn useful post-earthquake. And so there builds a camaraderie there, a trust level. We'll touch more on disaster hubs a little bit later on, but I want to talk to you about a connected thing, which is pretty foundational, and that's called, the program is called Map Your Neighborhood. That's the MYN that you see here. Map Your Neighborhood was a, this is Map Your Neighborhood. It's a flip chart, and it's homegrown. It was created by a woman named Dr. Luann Johnson. She made it when she was a state employee in Olympia. So a lot of other states have either adopted that program specifically or created their own versions of it. It's very well thought out. Luann's very, very bright. And it has stood the test of time. And what it is it takes folks through 9 steps of what to do post-earthquake to care for themselves first, their immediate loved ones that they are in the same building with, and then their immediate neighbors. It's group resilience at its best. And it is absolutely foundational to everything that we have built. So if there is a place to start when you and we can get into this in the Q&A after Eric gives you his talk as well, as well, what's next? Where do we start? Street by street work. Neighbors getting together, call it 20 neighbors max, the 10 folks on either side of you, wherever you live. Or if you're in an apartment building or a townhouse, it might be floor by floor. Map Your Neighborhood program is the place to start. It's what everything else will be built up on top of, because life is going to get very local very quickly post-earthquake. Everything is going to change. And having Facebook friends that are across the country, not useful, even across the island, right? Even just the difference between living up north on Whidbey and south on Whidbey, that is a long way if you're walking, right? So that your immediate neighbors, that's going to be your support system. So hubs, as I said, they're designed so that everybody can walk into them. And so what's best is if they're surrounded by streets that have been mapped through the Map Your Neighborhood program. So I'm not going to go over this slide. This is more of that same ICS that I referred to earlier. Within Map Your Neighborhood, there's a couple of key items. One is that you are working in conjunction with your immediate neighbors, and that gets you into this group resilience mode. And then because when you walk into a hub, what you're going to see is now you're going to see group resilience writ large, right? It's now not just a group of 20 neighbors here and 20 neighbors there. It's a group of 200 neighbors here and 300 neighbors there, all operating in conjunction with each other. So in addition to this flip chart, which most of the time this is administered either through an ERIC, right, a director of emergency management, or somebody like a Chief Walsh, a fire chief, who is progressive and clued in. So that's who you can, and we'll have Eric tell us for Island County what that will specifically be for you guys. Well, where do you get these flip charts, and how do you go about doing Map Your Neighborhood parties? By the way, we are a big believer in preparedness through parties, because this is a bummer of a topic, right? And it is really easy, for folks to go straight down the doomer path, and we don't do that. Our attitude is we look at preparedness, and community preparedness in particular, through this lens of love, not fear. And that has made all the difference in the world. Now, if you go through fear, it will motivate folks. They will take action, but it does not stick. It's a flash in the pan and then they stop. If you motivate them through love, it takes longer to get into their brain. It takes longer to get them to act, but then when they act, it actually sticks. And if you plan for success and you think through what this looks like for Whidbey in 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years, if you're doing this through fear, you have just created an island that is not enjoyable to live on, and nobody wants that. If you do it through love, then all you have done is just reinforce really great relationships. You've made the island more enjoyable to live in. And frankly, if the earthquake doesn't even happen in our lifetimes, doesn't matter. You've created a better town, right? You've created it for the next generation to pick up and to run with. So part of Map Your Neighborhood is this reunification guide that you see here. Now this is I made this for my book, which by the way, you don't need to buy. The local library should have copies of it. And all of the stuff, all of the checklists and things like that are on the website, or on bainbridgeprepares.org website, including this one. Now this emergency plan is different than the one that I showed to most other towns that I talked to in British Columbia and Washington and California and Oregon. You'll notice on the right-hand side, there is a reference to King County and there's a reference to Kitsap County, both sides of the water. I would like you all to do the same thing. You need to have places that you can go and shelter in place for several weeks if you are not on the island when the earthquake hits, both sides, right? So you could be going over to like SeaTac, right, the airport. You could be heading out to the Olympics for, head out to Squim for one of the festivals. You need to have a place that you can stay. Now, best practices for, well, how would I do that? Think about work colleagues, think about faith-based organizations, think about affinity groups that you're a part of, and then offer them a barter deal. Because remember, you live on Whidbey Island, which is gorgeous, and everybody likes to come visit, right? So let them know, hey, if you're on Whidbey this summer and an earthquake happens, please know that you are welcome to come and live with us for several weeks, because you're not going to be getting off the island anytime soon. Oh, by the way, would you mind if I crashed with you if I am out, visiting family in Port Townsend and I'm making my way back to the island when the earthquake happens? So this family reunification guide is particularly important. It can be accomplished through a calm 20-minute discussion over dinner one night, but it needs to include locations where you can shelter in place on both sides of the island. The other thing about this is you can make this language friendly, both for little ones that might be in the household, to talk about it in non-scary terms, as well as beloved elders. If you have your senior parents that are living with you, you can have this conversation in non-scary terms. It can be done through love and not fear. It can be done of saying, hey, if we're not able to use our normal cell phones to get in touch with each other, and something happens, who should stay put? And who should come check on who? So that you're not walking across the island like this and passing each other inadvertently. So there's a child counterpart to the family reunification plan, which our child safety team has developed over the years. It's a 3-day telescoping plan. So if the earthquake happens and the kiddos are at school, this plan kicks in. All of our schools, after much cajoling over the years, are ready to be able to take care of the kids for 3 days. Now, the school district has been a good, strong partner of ours for years and years and years. For quite a while, it was the superintendent themselves that attended the monthly meeting on this, that was pushing this boulder up the hill. And now it's divided across several key staff people who have decision-making authority. And we also have representation from the private schools as well. That think tank created this plan to say, okay, the earthquake happens, the kids are at school. For the first day, parents and guardians are encouraged to start walking in towards those schools to retrieve their kiddo. Great, that's going to take care of most of the kids. The second day, folks, guardians, and what we call top 10 people are encouraged to come in to pick up the remaining kiddos. Now, by top 10, what I mean is with all of our schools every fall, they're encouraged to write down a top 10 list of folks that are authorized to pick up your kiddo in an emergency. Ideally, these folks live close to where the kiddo lives. So if you are living in North Whidbey, but your best friend is all the way on the south end of the island, I'd encourage you not to put them on your top 10 list, because you would be walking all the way down to their house to retrieve your child. So the second day is, if they haven't been picked up by their parents or guardians, that the secondary folks pick them up. The third day is where something unique happens that we haven't seen other towns do this planning, which is where we telescope all of the kids into a central location. So for us, that's the high school, where a child reunification center is set up. And this is the known place where all of the parents who might be off island know when they eventually do get back onto the island, this is the place where their kiddo will be if they're not at home, because a neighbor or a loved one picked them up. And these folks, it's a specialty group of volunteers that have child specialties, right? So it's not just a normal psychologist, it's a child psychologist. It's folks that are retired teachers, people that have these extra skill sets to know how to deal with kiddos in an effective manner. Okay, a couple more deep dives, and then we'll wrap up. This next deep dive is also, I think, of interest to you all because it's another force multiplier. Now, when you say force multiplier, that phrase, to somebody like Eric or Chief Walsh, they get all excited. they're like, oh, that's great, because they are like teams of 2 or 3 or 5 folks, or if it's a fire department, teams of 5 or 10 or 15 or 30 folks. Force multiplier of 300 citizens, 1,000 citizens, or in this case, high-tech eyes in the sky. That gets professional first responders and emergency managers really excited. So the images that you are seeing here are actual real images. That the top middle one where the sailboat went aground, it started floundering actually before you could get to it very easily. The chief, our fire chief, activated our drone team. They put the drone right on the other side of it, so then the fire chief can see what's on that far side. And it happens super duper quick, faster than we could get another boat out there. So drones are a particularly interesting way that either our fire chief or our police chief can activate them in order to get eyes on, particularly for search and rescue. Now, if you apply that to what our topic today is of earthquakes, if you remember that mentioning of a windshield survey, right? Our our senior level leaders need to make decisions based off of good data. Eric has got a ginormous county to watch over that includes multiple islands. If you give Eric drones, or you give him access to residents with drones who can then report in what their drones are seeing, all of a sudden Eric has got eyes in the sky, post-earthquake, and he gets a lot more data so that he can make good decisions. So it's a very interesting way where it's a private citizen thing authorized by the first responders and activated such that they can get much more data much more quickly. Okay, last one that I thought you guys might be interested in, because you're another island, is our flotilla. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, a huge percentage of our emergency personnel, our professional level first responders, they live off island. Now, they're in their DNA is they want to do their job. If you take a firefighter or a sheriff or a police officer and you say you're not allowed to do their job, it will drive them bonkers. They want to get to their service area to do their job. The flotilla is our answer to that. Now, there's a couple of bitter pills that you guys are going to have to swallow as a community. And one is just a realistic one of how quickly are the waters around Puget Sound going to become navigable again post-earthquake? And the answer is not quickly. So we've had conversations with Coast Guard. They've told us they are not going to send out their big breaker boats, their big beefy boats that can smash through stuff. They're not going to even send them out until day 4, 5, or 6 because of the Setch effect, that bathtub sloshing effect that several of the types of earthquakes will create in the Puget Sound. It's going to be a mess for multiple days. Even then, when the Coast Guard sends out their boats, what they're really looking is for how much debris is in this water, how navigable are these waters going to be? And the answer, the guess, and again, this is the professionals just having to make guesses, they're not going to be navigable very quickly. So while we have built a flotilla, we are also fully expecting that we don't get to actually activate that flotilla until we are 1 or 2 weeks into post-earthquake. Now, what that means is that's why you have to have a shelter-in-place location for yourself if you're caught off island on either side of the water. You're just not going to get back to the island that quickly. Now, when you do, for instance, with our flotilla, it's designed to first rounds they start doing is they're going to pick them up at known marshaling points so that we can get our first responders to their islands because they want to do their jobs. But it also gets some folks that live on the island. Like I've got a Kitsap County sheriff that lives right down the street from me. He's a great guy and he's going to be helpful here for the first week or two, but he really wants to get to his job, which means we need to get him off this island so that he can report in for county level professional duties. So it'll go both ways in terms of emergency personnel. Next round is gear, emergency gear, and then normal people like you and I. That's a bitter pill to swallow as well, to say, oh, there's boats that are circling, for instance, that might be flying these Bainbridge Island flags that you see here. But as a normal citizen, I'm tertiary in importance. So local audiences don't like hearing that, but it's reality. And if they hear it now, and if they hear it given in a sense of love, that they can plan for it. They can go, oh, you weren't kidding when you said I need a place that I could stay for a few weeks. I can't just think that, well, I'll camp out on the beach and somebody will pick me up on a boat, a day or two later. That won't happen. Okay, I already touched on this one once when talking about our Medical Reserve Corps, but for COVID, this is another example that gets professional level people super duper excited. Just that first bullet point alone. So in volunteer hours, in a single year, we had volunteer hours that was the equivalent of 18 full-time employees. So that's like if you walk to, the Langley mayor and said, I'm pretty sure Langley has a mayor. If you walk up to the Langley mayor and say, hey, would you have liked 18 full-time employees that could have helped during COVID? Their eyes are going to bulge out. That's where you start to see the power of trained citizens and how that they can support operations like this. Last one is wildfire readiness. So I mentioned we do things beyond just plan for earthquakes, and a big one is the FireWise program. I'm pretty sure that the fire chiefs on would we do the same, use the same program? I think it's a state level program called Firewise. What we have done is we have combined the Firewise program with Map Your Neighborhood, and it's where you get things like what you see here, where people are creating defensible spaces around their homes by taking out vegetation that's dead and or dying, and creating those defensible spaces, doing so as a group. Everything is about group resilience with this. That was the theme of my book, was that solo survivalism is a myth, frankly, and group resilience is where it's at, working with neighbors. And nothing epitomizes that more than seeing a big trailer dropped in from our local disposal folks, and it gets chocked full by the end of the day with this small army of 25 citizens with loppers going at it. And it also warms the fire chief's heart to see those defensible spaces being created. Okay, let's talk marketing for a second. So it's hard to get through to people. Madison Avenue, the folks in New York will tell you that you have to, the rule of thumb is you have to hit somebody with a message 7 times, 7 different ways for it to even sink in once. That means I need to tell you about our Prepare in a Year calendar that lets you buy certain things by topic each month, and then a year from now, you're fully ready. I have to tell you about Prepare in a Year 7 different times, 7 different methods, right? I need to tell you on Facebook and Nextdoor. I need to have a poster at the grocery store. I need to have a local friend tell you about it. I need to have your pastor from your church mention it from the pulpit. All those different ways to get it to sink into your brain once. It is difficult. It is also where the community can really support the professionals, the fire chiefs, the police chiefs, the sheriffs, the county level DEMs, Department of Emergency Manager folks, because they need help. They've got the message. It's right there. They need help spreading it and finding the clever different ways to get it into folks' brains. What I've listed here is just a sampling of the type of Marcom things that we do. And by the way, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Take ours. Take our Prepare in a Year calendar, pull off the Bainbridge Prepares, put on an Island Prepares, run with it. We would love to see you do that. Speaking of that, we are creating a replication kit that we're planning to give away for free. Some of your crew actually have already seen sneak peeks of it in wireframe to make sure we were going in the right direction. This is what I mentioned earlier. This will be ready probably sometime this fall. I'm aiming for either September or October. And it's a website that is basically your blueprint for what do you do. And it's interactive, it's engaging. If you want to, get access to the pre-release, hit that website there, bainbridgeprepares.org/model. And you can sign up to be in the beta this fall. And this is also something that will give you a little bit of an impetus of, we've done X, what's next? Because that's not always a linear fashion. And so the website and the companion mobile app that we'll have the following year allow you to engage with the replication model, because you've got choices. If you have a Map Your Neighborhood Foundation, one choice might be going for animal care, both pets and large animal care, if that is a big part of that community. Another might be going towards a flotilla, if that town is an island like yours and mine. So if you're interested in a sneak peek, take a look at that. And I'll leave you with one last reminder before I hand it back over to Eric, which is attitude is everything. If you have these public meetings and folks are walking away fearful and scared, it hasn't worked. You've failed. If they walk away full of hope and excitement about building community using this as a mechanism, then you've won. Then you've already won, because relationships are significantly more important than gear in an emergency scenario. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other and turn it back over to Eric. Eric, here. Yeah, there you go.
There we are. All right. Well, thank you very much, Scott. Man, I've seen that, like I say, a couple times now. I get something different out of it every single time.
It's because I
Um,
change it. I forget what I said last time, so I change it each time.
there you go. That's perfect. That's perfect. So I'm going to try not to duplicate things that Scott said. I know a lot of the stuff we've been working on this for a while now. Um, as far, I've been doing this job for 14 years, and I think I know almost everybody on here. So just to introduce myself, I'm Eric Brooks. I'm with Emergency Management. I got two other people in my shop that are absolutely just vital to the department and just getting prepared in emergency management in the county. One of them is John Becker, and the other one is Rachel Schwenden. So I got to obviously do a shout out to them because they are the backbone of the department here and everything that they do and supporting our community. So, like I say, I've been doing this for 14 years. Before this, I was in the Navy. I was bomb disposal in the Navy. So dealing with disasters and dangerous situations isn't new to me. Um, I've been trying to get to Whidbey Island for a long, long time. We had an EOD detachment that was here, explosive ordnance disposal detachment that was here, and since the 90s, I've been trying to get out to Whidbey Island, and finally on my last tour, I was able to. And I was lucky enough, because of the education and experience I had, to be able to get the position in emergency management. And I wanted that because it truly is a passion. It's a passion of mine, just helping people to reduce risk, helping people through dangerous situations, helping people to overcome the fear of disasters, to be prepared, to get ready. Um, I have loved every minute of having this job. And the best part about it is dealing with the community. Um, I, I love going out into the community. I've given presentations to so many organizations, so many groups, so many individuals. I say the best part about that is oftentimes the food, because they always tend to feed me when I go to some of these big presentations. But I love going out into the communities, talking and organizing. And every every year that we've been doing this, we seem to get more and more organized, and we got more and more groups that are wanting to get prepared, wanting to be part of the big picture, wanting to coordinate their areas. And I looked at the invite list here, not the invite, but the people that are here. And we've got a lot of people from county departments, which I really, really appreciate. And I had to stop writing down because I was writing down so many names here. But I know we got people from the planning department, we got people from community health and environmental health on here. We've got our building inspectors. We have human services. We've got some public works here. I've seen some people from the fire jurisdictions as well as law enforcement. I see the Red Cross. I see the U.S. Navy that's here. And all of these are partners in our emergency preparedness and our response and pushing out the information and organizing. So I really appreciate everybody attending this. I'm going to share my screen so I can give my presentation here. Tell me if it's showing up correctly here. Whoops, hold on for a second.
We're starting to get it. We can see your desktop.
All right, it's getting there.
There we go. Got your slide.
Awesome. All right, I changed the title of this so many times. I think it went from teamwork to, you know, some different variations of Island County Prepares, but the latest iteration is teamwork makes the dream work here, because really that's the theme of this whole thing is how do we work together? And why we do it is pretty obvious. We have a lot of situations in Island County, just like Bainbridge County and every place else in the Puget Sound, where we have emergencies that come up and we have disasters, everything from extreme weather, we have coastal erosion. But there are things that are going to happen that are going to cut out our infrastructure. That's going to create chaos. It's going to create fear. It's whether it's wildfire or landslide or earthquake. It's like Scott was saying, we often talk about earthquakes because that's the most traumatic thing that's going to happen. That's going to really impact us the greatest. So we'd like to say if you're ready for an earthquake, you're going to be ready for just about anything. But the biggest thing that we want to do is we all want to come together as a group. So coming together is a beginning, keeping it together is working together is success, is progress. Working together is success. So one of the things when I first heard Scott talk that's kind of encouraging is when he talks about the slow start they had to the program, because Bainbridge has a really successful program. They're very coordinated, very well thought out, and you would think that it came like that. But like he says, they started in 2011, and it took a couple different restarts, couple different tries to really get that momentum that they're going. I think we have an advantage in that, is that right now we we have a real great core of volunteers, and we have a lot of teams that are set up right now. We have our amateur radio. We have teams that are set for sheltering. We have teams that do our points of distribution, our damage assessment. We have medical reserve corps. We have the community emergency response team. So we have a lot of teams that are out there right now that are doing great things. And our biggest thing that we want to do right now is to start to build upon that success. COVID was a great example of that. We had over 700 volunteers that signed up during COVID, and they did a wide variety of jobs. I mean, we had our testing clinics, we had our vaccine clinics, we had large clinics where in a single day we put out 2,000 vaccines, which was huge. But we also had people that were distributing personal protective equipment to all different types of businesses and long-term care facilities, hospitals. We had people work in our logistics section. We had people that were getting groceries for the people that couldn't get out of the house. We had people that were communicating. So we had a lot of those teams that were really set up in order to help support. But it all starts with getting that personal preparedness going. So, personal preparedness really starts with that individual. It starts with the families. It's important that they get prepared. They recognize the need and they take the initiative. And because of this, they're more confident and they're less fearful. And the thing about personal preparedness is it gets to be contagious here. So you have a few of them that start off, and pretty soon, they start telling their friends, they start telling others, and pretty soon more people are prepared. And then it starts to expand into neighborhoods. They start talking and sharing it with their social group, maybe their school or work. And pretty soon that preparedness grows. It's infectious. Not that we want to talk about infections as close to COVID, but it certainly is. And those who prepared individuals, they tend to merge and they start to get those prepared neighborhoods. So the thing about working together and sharing that experience, 53% of the people receive preparedness information through conversations. So, once you get prepared, once you start working within your family, and you start talking to your neighbors, then they start getting prepared, and then you start working together. So the biggest thing on this slide I want you to take is that, when you start getting ready, when you start getting organized, that's going to spread throughout the community. So as prepared as we are, there are strength in numbers. So we may all need some kind of help at some time, regardless of how prepared and how ready that we are. Likely what that help is going to come from, it's going to come from those people that are close around you. So it's important that you learn to organize, that you learn to recognize the different skills and talent that you have in your neighborhood. So once you start to organize yourself and your family, then it's time to organize like on your block. We talked a little bit about map your neighborhood, and we'll go over that a little bit later here, but start to organize in your neighborhood. So everybody has something to contribute. And pretty soon, as one neighborhood starts to get ready and they start to organize, whether it's an HOA, whether it's a water association, pretty soon you get other neighborhoods that start to get prepared. And then as more neighborhoods get organized, then they kind of start to touch, and then you start to coordinate on a bigger scale, and you start to take advantage of the talent and resources of those neighborhoods around you. I know Scott talked about hubs and being able to go from, different hubs. So after a while, you start to get away from that close proximity and you start to coordinate and organize with those that are around you. We came up with this org chart and roles and responsibilities kind of based off of what Scott did. We had this, as far as counties and cities, we got the Island County logo here, but really this could be not just the county, but also the towns and cities in the area as well. So we got Langley, we got Coopville, we got the city of Oak Harbor. We do a lot of preparedness activities. Some of the things that we do Map Your Neighborhood. We have a very robust Map Your Neighborhood program. We also have something called Island Ready, which all those materials are on our website as well. We do the community emergency response team training, do a lot of pub ed, a lot of training and exercise. Our big thing is critical infrastructure planning. So we talk a lot with with our different infrastructure systems. We help do the planning efforts for them, help coordinate with them, logistics, communications. But our response agencies do a lot of outreach and a lot of pub ed as well. They do their fire prevention campaigns. We do Firewise, and our conservation district is excellent on doing the Firewise program out there. They'll come to your house. They'll do outreach to neighborhoods. Sometimes they'll provide some funding for that. But our response agencies also do a lot of CPR classes, first aid. They do the falls prevention. They certainly help us with our community emergency response team classes. They support education. And then you got our law enforcement, which really focuses on protection, acts of violence, the neighborhood watch program. But we have a lot of organizations right now that do a lot of our preparedness activities and outreach too. We've got our Coopville Net that does a lot of outreach for us. We have the Camano Preparedness Group is really our first version of Bainbridge Prepares, and they've been active for years right now, doing outstanding work, doing our Map Your Neighborhood program out there, helping to organize their neighborhoods. They teach a lot of our community emergency response team classes out there, as well as other training. They do a whole bunch of community outreach, but it's all about building those partnerships. And then when it comes to response, obviously we're working out of the Emergency Operations Center, trying to coordinate with all the different organizations, all the different community lifelines, municipalities, doing damage assessment, sharing that information. We handle the alert and warning system. We do all that, trying to support our incident command systems from the response agencies as they take care of the public safety, putting out fires, mass casualty, search and rescue. And then we have a lot of our teams that are currently still play a huge part. We talked about COVID and all the stuff that our neighborhood teams do. They do the neighborhood response. They provide us with outstanding damage assessment, oftentimes through our amateur radio system, as well as coming to our Emergency Operations Center and helping to provide logistic support, either through our Emergency Operations Center or also through our sheltering operations and our community points of distribution. We talked about community lifelines, and really what that is, it's us working together in order to bring back those services that are vital to our recovery. And that could be anything from food to water to health to transportation, energy, any of that stuff. When we set up our Emergency Operations Center, that's really what we focus on, is bringing that infrastructure back up and running. But when it comes to recovery, it's a community effort as far as recovery goes. So as we get even more organized and our groups step up into some coordinating roles, we can improve our span of control, and we can start to set up these teams based on our geographic locations. And we have a little bit of that right now. We have Coopville Net, which handles a lot of that stuff in the Coopville area, and they work closely with us. Of course, we talked about Camano, who share information with us, and they coordinate a lot of those efforts on Camano Island, just like they did during COVID. And then we have South Whidbey Prepares, which is on the south end of the island, and they're a brand new group. Right now, they're focusing mainly on Map Your Neighborhood and filling out or getting our public education system set up. But it's really important, especially from a county point of view, to have that span of control and to be able to have these teams and these organizations in these different areas that we can communicate with in order to help support our operations, somebody that we can go to in order to set these teams up. It really facilitates our training, makes our training opportunities a little bit more impactful. It also helps us to efficiently deploy our teams and utilize our teams in times of disaster. But overall, the whole point is that the county is here to support the entire county. And so all of us work together. We try to work together seamlessly in order to bring these teams together. in order to bring information together, in order to not only help in response, but also to help us recover faster. And so what are we going to do right now? So, primarily what we need to do right now, like I say, we have a lot of these teams that are formed. We do a lot of training. We do a lot of organization right now, but we got to keep moving forward. It's nice to have that head start right now. It's nice to have a lot of people that are motivated, but we got to keep moving forward. So the people that are here on this meeting right now, the people that come to our training, you got to spread the word. Like we said, 53% of people get their preparedness information from each other. They get it from their neighbors. They get it from their workers. So keep spreading the word. Just like with Bainbridge, Map Your Neighborhood is really our bread and butter. We've been doing Map Your Neighborhood for years now. Have distributed thousands of the pamphlets, and we just ordered another 1,000 pamphlets in order to pass out. So if you need any of those, certainly come to us. We can give you facilitator's guide. We can help you facilitate. We can hand out the brochures. But Map Your Neighborhood is really that base of getting that organized, getting that neighborhood organized, getting your neighborhood prepared, getting individuals prepared. It goes over the 9 steps on how to effectively engage with each other, how to really give you a chance to take a breath. It keeps small things from getting bigger. But it's an excellent program, and it's also a good system on how to communicate with each other, how to communicate to potentially your neighborhood check-in point, how to communicate with the hubs, and eventually how to communicate with that emergency response or emergency operations center as well. Get involved. Get involved. So we hold a lot of training opportunities. There's nothing like planning together and training together. This is from our community emergency response team training. These are 2 of our county employees, but we have CERT classes every year. We typically give 6 community emergency response team classes a year. We've had 3 already this year. We've got 3 more coming up. We got August 22nd and 24th in North Whidbey. We've got September 5 to 7 in South Whidbey. And then Camano Island is holding community emergency response team training in October. But we also have EOC specific, Emergency Operations Center specific classes, September. We've got intermediate Emergency Operations Center operations and management. And that's a lot of times for our county employees. But we also open it up to our volunteers that work in our Emergency Operations Center as well. And then August 12th, we have another one, which is Emergency Operations Center Incident Command Interface. We do points of distribution exercise. So anytime we need to give food, water, any of those essential supplies, even things like vaccines or prophylaxis or anything like that, we set up a community point of distribution. And we have training on June 7th, utilizing general aviation over at the Whidbey Air Park on June 7th. And then we have an exercise on June 21st in South Whidbey, Trinity Lutheran Church, for setting up a point of distribution as well. So those are the ones that are scheduled. We're also scheduling one on Camano Island. We got to find the location for that one, but that'll also be later on in the year, specifically for Camano Island. And then we have our sheltering exercise as well. So we have June 16th to 17th, which is a FEMA course. We have August 16th in South Whidbey. And then we have September 17th on Camano Island. And this is just really a small sampling of the different training evolutions that we have scheduled and that we do. We do a lot of just-in-time training, but definitely visit our training calendar on our website. We have the website down there. The other thing is register as an emergency worker. The emergency worker program is Washington State has it. It's established by the RCW, and it is an outstanding program. And I don't know a whole lot of states that support their volunteers and support their emergency workers like Washington State does. Anybody that's going to be participating in any type of evolution during a disaster, any of the volunteers, or even for training evolutions, preparing for any type of volunteer activation, should be registered for an emergency worker. We have the emergency worker forms online now. So you can fill that out and send it to us. You get an emergency worker number. What that does is it gives you coverage for liability, medical expenses, can even give you some coverage for personal property, potentially, if it's damage in the line of responding. And it might give you some reimbursement for some type of incidental costs as well. But it's an excellent program. We can certainly talk more about that. But the main thing for this is stay motivated. You know, one thing that we want you to do is to keep communicating with us. We have uh, just a lot of volunteers, and a lot of the ideas that we get from the community members. We get from our employees. We get from other communities such as Bainbridge or King County or Snohomish County. So we have a lot of partners, but the main thing is share those ideas. Definitely get involved. Attend the meetings that we have here. We'll have those scheduled on the calendar as well. But if you haven't been to a South Whidbey Prepares meeting, definitely get involved with South Whidbey Prepares if you live on Camano Net, or Coupeville Net. And if you're on Camano Island, definitely be part of the Camano Preparedness group as well. But get involved, and we'll definitely help you get organized as well, whether it's on a family level or an individual level. If you want to do Map Your Neighborhood, or if you want to be part of the bigger picture and be part of a team, we'll definitely help you with that as well. And the thing to remember is we're all in this together. So there's really nothing that we can't accomplish because we do have an enthusiastic team. So we found that out with just with the enthusiasm. It's hard for me to believe how quickly South Whidbey Prepares was able to get up and running, and that's because of the enthusiasm of the community and the enthusiasm of Tara Anderson getting that started. So, but it's not just South Whidbey. We have a lot of momentum. We have a lot of enthusiasm on the south end as well. And then Camano Island has always been kind of our poster child for getting the neighborhood coordinated and getting them all organized as well. And this is probably my favorite saying, my favorite quote right here is, the worst part of being very well prepared for a disaster is this: now you start wanting that disaster to happen. You want to be able to show off those skills. You want to be able to, you no longer have that fear. You no longer have that, sense of disaster. A disaster is only a disaster when you're not ready for it. So if you're ready for it, if you've got your neighborhood prepared, you lose that fear, and it's just a matter of responding and just to do what you're ready for. So with that, this is our contact information, our phone number. Definitely email us, which is probably the best way to get a hold of us, and then visit our website. We have so much preparedness information and forms and videos and pretty much anything that you would need in order to get organized and get prepared on that website. And if we don't have it, then we'll certainly put it on there. But definitely reach out to us. Let's keep this momentum going. Let's definitely not backslide or anything. Let's keep that motivation going. Let's get our training and get organized. So with that, all right, with that, if you have any questions, you can either raise your hand. That's all we have for the presentations. We have a good amount of time for question and answers right now, so definitely raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat, and we will try to answer your questions through chat as well. All right, I gotta look here. We got Frank. Frank Kwan. Do I need to unmute you here? Or... I think you can unmute yourself, Frank. All right, let's go ahead and move to Ann then. Ann Terse. Oh, you on there, Frank?
Yeah.
There we go.
First of all, thank you, Scott. It's very inspiring what you went through. And okay, got the book.
Thanks, Frank.
Been there, done that, etc. I guess the question I have, Eric, is, you know, Whitby, well, I'm on Whitby. We're like 3 times the size of Bainbridge in terms of the area. Actually, 6 times bigger because we're a big Long Island type of thing. And it's key to me that you've got Bainbridge. It took you a while, but you've got everything so organized, and you've got like the whole island working with you. And I think, Eric, for us, we did for a while when I first got involved, I guess a couple of years ago now. We had Whidbey Island Preparedness Group, and then it kind of went away. Are we going to be able to have that come back where we had regular meetings that had Whidbey Island Preparedness Group from up and down the island, and then we could all talk to each other on a regular basis? And I think, to me, it's critical that we have a degree of coordination in terms of what everybody is doing. And Scott talked about trying to do things with love. And I think part of that is being engaged in terms of understanding what is going on. And then, Eric, you talked about, you know, people giving you information, sharing information. I think it works both ways. So if we could be able to utilize that preparedness group so that we can get feedback, and you can share suggestions that you're getting from other parts, not just from Whidbey, but from Scott or anyone else in terms of how it would help us. And I think that would be a valuable thing to see kind of reinstituted, simply because, at least for me, it kept me very tied in. And as we were starting up the Map Your Neighborhood thing in my neighborhood, it was very useful to get tips from everyone else in terms of what they were going through and what their experiences were. So I just want to add that. And again, Scott, thank you very much. And I'm glad to see that you're taking the show on the road, because it's got a lot of great content in there. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, so to answer your question, yeah, we are going to get Whidbey Prepares back up and running, and we're probably going to, the thing is, right now we got so many different groups that want to organize based on geography. We talked about South Whidbey Prepares, which is excellent. The reason we went to Island Prepares is because I didn't want to exclude Camano in sharing all that information. So we're kind of going to call it Island Prepares, and then we'll also have the smaller groups that help us organize geographically, and that just makes it more effective that way. But as you know, we had a transition in our staff, and that's kind of what slowed Whidbey Prepares down a little bit. But yeah, this is our key point on bringing that back up and continuing to share that information.
Frank, I'll also give you a bit of encouragement. So if you remember that timeline graphic that I showed you, so we started in 2011. By 2013, 2 years in, we were at 110 volunteers. And I stepped away I had an opportunity to go run another company to do a turnaround. And so I stepped away for 3 years. 110 people went to 25. I failed because I left it in the form of a council. It was a 12-person council, but there was no clearly defined 1 or 2 people to push that boulder up the hill. And that was my mistake. The council just talked everything to death, and no actual progress was made. That's where I think you can take advantage of, if you've got a Pat Waters, if up north, if you've got a Tara Anderson down south, if you've got this single point of contact within the citizenry to then be working with Eric, to be working with the fire chiefs, that's a way that you can continue that momentum. But I also say that to encourage you we went from 110 to 25, but we rebuilt, and now it's bigger than ever.
So I see a couple questions in the chat. So one of them is, I see Tara Anderson is a rock star. I think Tara's a rock star as well. Facebook pages that we can add to start our networking. So yeah, so we'll get that group of Facebook pages. Also Nextdoor. Nextdoor seems to be a super effective way of passing on information as well. And so just like we're a big emergency management team, and we have our community as well, also within the county department. So public health, I see here, they have a lot of different networks that they reach out to and that they have. So it's connecting their networks with our networks and with the different community networks, and kind of all coming together. Bainbridge has a little bit of an advantage in that just the size. And that's why it's so effective having us break it down into those 4 areas. Camano has been very effective, having that Camano preparedness group, because people like focusing on Camano because that's the community that they're in. That's the community they associate with. Same thing with South Whidbey. I have trouble because I'm always looking at big picture, and I love Island County as a whole. And when I first started out, I never really separated Camano from South Whidbey to North Whidbey, because and I'm still, just thrilled to be in Island County. So, but yeah, it makes it more effective, makes passing information a little bit more effective, makes coordinating more effective when we do have these smaller groups that we can reach out to and that coordinate within their small groups. And then we all come together and coordinate, like Frank was talking, and kind of take our lessons learned and things like that. So yeah, we'll get together the different Facebook pages that we have, and then we're going to rely on the community to provide the ones that they go to as well. So let's see. Let's see, a couple more people. Let's do hands up. Anne, I'm going to go to you next. Anne
Okay,
first.
Yeah.
Hi, Anne.
Hi. Yeah, thanks both of you for a great presentation. One of the things you said, Eric, was that Firewise is a great program and all of that, but I know for a fact that we have one person at the Whidbey Island Conservation District. And I know that there's at least a 6-month backup on having him come. And now he's saying that he can't come to individual houses, but will only do neighborhoods. Having come from Eugene, where Firewise was handled by the fire department, I wonder if that program, which is so crucial, and I know that up until recently, Island County was really only looking at earthquakes, and perhaps not even considering that a big bad earthquake in the summertime when things are so dry could also result in a big wildfire. That we need some more emphasis on Firewise. And I understand why it's not being handled by the fire departments. They're skinny enough as it is. But how can we get that program beefed up so it's actually helpful to more people?
We'll have to strategize with the conservation district on that. They have a great program. What I think maybe we could do is train the trainer programs. So it's not just Colin that's going out there, going from house to house, because he really is a one-man show out there at the conservation district. So I think that's something that we can work with Colin. I think he'll be very amenable to that. And as far as focusing only on earthquakes, I think we kind of explained that a little bit. We realize we have a lot of different hazards here on the island. So we don't just focus on earthquakes. We kind of go with what people are enthusiastic about at the time as well, when we start putting out pub ed. And so when that one publication came out through I can't remember what it was, the New Yorker or something like that, about the big one and everything being toast, everybody was excited about earthquakes. And so, we took advantage of that. And that's why we talk a lot about earthquakes. And it's just absolutely devastating earthquakes. If you notice in the last few years, because we've had the Maui wildfires and we've had the Los Angeles wildfires, now we talk a little bit more about wildfires. Love the Firewise program, especially for Island County, because we're at very low risk for wildfires here, if you look at land fire data and stuff like that. However, we are a wildland urban interface / intermix. So those things that we strategize, those things that you can do in the Firewise programs, rake those pine needles away from your house, take care of your, landscaping, things like that. Those are even more effective in Island County to prevent those type of disasters, wildfire disasters, because we are what we call a WUI, a wildland urban interface. So it'd be very, very effective. So I'm with you. Let me talk to Colin and we'll see what we can do about that. Okay.
Great. Thanks.
And Anne, I know you're another one of our rock stars here, because I see you at so many different things. So.
Oh, thank you.
I'm going to go to Ron. Did you put your hand down? No, Ron's hand's up there. Ron Conlon. So Ron Conlon is one of our Red Cross. I mean, he's kind of one of our main Red Cross people. Him and Nancy Waddell, who's also on this. So, but Ron, I'm going to go to you next.
Thanks, Eric. Good meeting. Very meaty. my question is for Scott, and the question is on Bainbridge. Is there any interaction with the American Red Cross?
Yes, I'm going to attempt to be politically sensitive in my answer to this because we're recording it, and I'm not normally politically sensitive. Yes, we have a number of our volunteers are also volunteers with Red Cross, highly credentialed Red Cross folks that get called up for deployments and such. However, I will balance that out with that Red Cross as an organizational model, I believe is broken. I think their hearts are of gold, but we are talking about having one Red Cross staffer assigned to multiple counties, and some of these counties include Seattle counties, which are ginormous in terms of number of people. That model of so few staffers assigned to such a large geographic area just simply doesn't work unless you can get humongous amounts of groundswell support. And that's the part where I think that they have fallen down. Frankly, the Red Cross that I grew up with, I'm in mid-50s, the Red Cross I grew up with is not the Red Cross of today. If it was, I wouldn't have needed to start a Bainbridge Prepares. We'd just be a Red Cross chapter. Now, I say that with a little bit of intrepidation because I've got a bunch of friends who are Red Cross folks, staffers and volunteers. It's just where it has fallen down is the local implementation. So, Ron, does that answer your question?
Yeah, with a little bit of clarification on my part, the Red Cross is 97.5% run by volunteers. I agree with you. It'd be nice to have more paid staff members. I think none of us would argue with that. But the Red Cross runs on volunteer steam power.
Yep, agree. Totally agree with you. We're the same way. We've got 2 paid staff out of 750 volunteers. The Red Cross has got a ton of good information, and of course, they've got decades worth of goodwill. And so, in my mind, the best of breed is where you've got these local citizen groups that are activating, like what Pat's doing up north and Tara's doing down south on Whidbey, and then the Red Cross folks come in and join in, just like you're doing on this phone call. That's the best of both worlds in my mind, is coordinated efforts together.
Thanks, Scott.
You bet. Thank you, Ron.
One of the things that I see in the chat too is people wondering when the meetings are for South Whidbey Prepares. They do have a website, and it is South Whidbey Prepares at whidbey.com. Oh, that's actually their email address. So you can send an email, but it is the second Tuesday of the month. So every second Tuesday of the month. Second Wednesday of the month. Sorry. Second Wednesday of the month. So the next one is June 11th. All right. Let me go to Jack Schwab.
Howdy, guys. Thanks. This is great, and Scott, it's great to know that there's a nearby place that kind of reached the pinnacle. No, you're not the pinnacle, but kind of doing a best practice. That's an island like us. You got ferries at one end, bridge at the other. It's just a great example. What comes into my mind, Eric, is up here on North Whidbey, we have 3 fire departments, right? Navy, North Whidbey, Oak Harbor. We've got 3 executive leadership organizations: Island County, Oak Harbor, Navy. Got a separate ambulance service from Whidbey Health. And yeah, a lot of this is citizen run, but it's government assisted and government supported. And I don't quite understand how we get to a place of consistent support and agreement with so many organizations involved that all probably want to have leadership roles. I don't know what thoughts you have about how to bring all that together with such fragmented government.
So can you give me an example?
How do I
So let me say, let me start off with this right now. So right now everything is kind of run through Island County. So run through emergency management. So if we need to set up a shelter, it's all run through emergency management. When we set up points of distribution, it's all run through emergency management. And a lot of times that coordination and that leadership will still be run through emergency management. It's what we're doing is we're these different areas, South Whidbey, North Whidbey, Central Whidbey, and Camano Island. We have an organization that is helping us to form those teams and is giving us that span of control and helping us to train and organize all those different mission areas. So while a lot of that is still being coordinated, the requests will still come either to or from the Emergency Operations Center. What it is just it's kind of breaking those teams down into those form groups so that we can better organize and better kind of ramp up those volunteers. Does that make sense?
It does. I wonder. Probably not saying it very well, but I mean, to some extent, I worry that the Navy has their own approach. The city could decide to have their own approach, and what worked. I mean, what I see great in Bainbridge Island is while they didn't have government support up front, they got it, and then there's single organizations. I don't know. I just think up here in North Whidbey it's just going to be a lot harder, because so all the different jurisdictions. So I don't know. It's maybe just a comment. I don't have a solution. Maybe not explaining it very well.
It'll be challenging. The nice thing is that all of us have the same goal in mind, and that's supporting our community. The city of Oak Harbor is really going to focus on. Is going to first and foremost focus on supporting the city of Oak Harbor. And then they provide support outside of that city of Oak Harbor. We have a master mutual aid agreement that has all the different municipalities as well as different fire jurisdictions. And basically what it says is that we all kind of prioritize our own mission areas in our own community, and we will support each other when we possibly can. So the big thing, that we have, because we have that overarching support, it's that big circle that goes over all of Island County, is really we're looking at the entire county as a whole. So we put those, all those little pieces together as a common operating picture, and our whole job is to support the entire county.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Let's go to Rob. And Rob, I'm sorry, but I don't have your last name here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's Rob Voss.
Hi, Rob.
Hi. I guess this question kind of falls into the lessons learned bucket, and just wondering what mistakes or oversights or even roadblocks that maybe Scott encountered during his planning process, and just kind of wondering how did you address them to improve your final plan. Just kind of coming from a mindset, if we're starting to do this, can we learn from your mistakes?
Hey, real quick, Rob, what part of the island are you from?
Near. So I'm new. I'm having a brain cramp here thinking of the beach.
You can just give me north, central, or south if you like. Or
Port Susan area.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So that's a good question, lessons learned. So I think we could probably do another 2-hour meeting just on that, on the mistakes we've made. And I tell you what, that is a whole lot of what's getting baked into the replication kit, which is please do this one of these 3 paths. Don't do these other 9 that we've tried that didn't work. So let's see. So I already mentioned one of them actually, which was you need a clear leader or leaders. I am a big believer in dynamic duos. I think 2 people is better than 1 for practically everything. Some of it is old backpacking wisdom of why do I have 2 pocket knives? Because 2 is 1 and 1 is none, right? So the same is true for leaders. One covers the other when they're going on vacation, when somebody gets sick, when somebody gets burned out. That's a big one. So having, when I talk with Pat Waters up north, when I talk with Terry Anderson down south, one of the things that's in the back of my mind when I'm talking to these other folks, these other versions of me, is who else do they have? Who is their second? Who is their co-lead for that? If you look on our website, almost all of the teams have got 2 co-leads, and that is by design. And that is from lessons learned early on, where we would have a flash in the pan of a volunteer comes in, they've got a passion for a topic, we build a team around it, they get momentum, and then something happens. A health issue, they move across the country, whatever, but we lose that person, and then all that, we're going grow, 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 and then nothing. So dynamic duos is was a big lesson learned. The other lesson learned was persistence. So having naysayers, we had some entities that I won't tell you which ones they are because now they're strong allies. But for the first several years, we were told point blank, hey, my boss said that I'm not allowed to talk to Bainbridge Prepares people. And that's kind of annoying, you know, when they're being told that. But 18 months later, 36 months later, it's the exact opposite. Now they're not only being told to not ignore us, they're being told, figure out how to plug into what they're doing. It's a great, big, great positive train that's already left the station. Let's figure out how to plug in. So that kind of thing of where you need to stay consistent, even if in the face of the naysayers, to say, no, I know that this is good work. We are building community. People are really enjoying this. They're finding connection and they're making the town better. You have to be thinking in terms of the long haul. Third one is that some of our partners, particularly with the city, we have had different city employees that have engaged with us over the years. None of them currently are engaged with us. They came from the world of silos and protecting turf. And some of these other departments within the city made life hell for my favorite person in the city, my emergency manager, right? They all report up to the same boss, but they were just siloed thinking, and they were thinking that anything that Ann did or her predecessor Amber did took away from their department, which of course is not the case, but they were so siloed in their thinking. And so a lot of it, the lesson that we learned from that is those folks we are probably going to outlive those folks. Quite literally, we are going to live in this island longer than they did. And that's true. Those folks have moved away. They not only did they leave the city, they left the entire town. And we outlasted them. So that's another thing with a naysayer or somebody that is particularly very ego-driven and is trying to claim credit. If you see somebody that's trying to grab credit away from Eric, as an example, or one of the fire chiefs, because they want to build their own little silo, resist them, but also know you can probably outlast them because they're in a transitory position. So those are my top three of mine.
Very helpful, insightful too. Thank you.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, and you know, I will say that like even the most recently, I know Tara Anderson and myself, I know we had some I don't want to say disagreements, but I don't think I was necessarily on the same page with Tara when she was first starting out. And it took us a couple of discussions and talking to really, you know, realize how effective that span of control is, and to have that one person there and to have that, just the energy that she brings to South Whidbey. So, you know, it's just, you got to keep communicating. You got to keep working together, because I mean, that's what's going to be effective. So
appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. All right. I know. Let me see. I've got Nancy. You've been waiting for a while here. So Nancy Waddell, another one of our community rock stars.
Thanks very much. Getting older community rock star. I remember with Jack's concern about the number of entities and jurisdictions and stuff that there are on Whidbey as opposed to maybe Bainbridge. I remember back to the turn of the century when we had Y2K concerns, and that was the first time on Whidbey anyway that I'd done community organizing, neighborhood organizing, and communication with the fire departments and all of that. And I remember that there was I don't know what it was called, but a fire council, or all the different fire departments got together on some regular basis. I don't know if it was, I don't think it was once a month, maybe once a quarter, something like that. And we were folded into that, the group that was trying to prepare for what might happen on Y2K, which didn't happen. But and I'm wondering if there could be something like that. And it wouldn't be an all comers meeting. It would be the leadership of the different entities, including South Whidbey Prepares, or including Island Prepares. And if information got disseminated that way, and there was some coordination. And I'm feeling like maybe it's time to bring that back. Maybe it is back and just didn't have the neighborhood components of it, but it feels like it could be a good addition to what we have now. Thanks.
Yeah. So I mean, the nice thing is that I know, and I don't know if they're still on, but I know we had two of our fire chiefs, Nick Walsh and Jerry Helmer, were both on this, at least earlier. So we certainly have the support and the enthusiasm of the fire chiefs. So, and they do have a monthly meeting still, the chiefs do, but yeah, bringing them in and coordinating and having them part of the conversation. Yeah, we'll definitely do that. I think we'll be doing a lot more coordination. You know, one of the advantages we have now is that, you know, I do have an extra body on staff now as well, which, you know, just for our day-to-day work allows us to keep up with that, but also just reaching out to the neighborhoods and the different infrastructure partners that we have. We're really going to need that as well. So, but yeah, we'll make that happen.
Sure. Thanks.
The next on my list here, I have Bill Dickey.
Hey, thanks, Eric. Former Whidbey person, now in Camino and new to CERT. And I'm curious, is Camino part of the Thunder Run this year on June 7th?
Camino Island is not, because Norma wasn't originally, Norma, who owns the airfield there, was not on the original list that Sky Terry was putting out. And she arranged something else at the airport by the time Sky put her back on there. So it was, they weren't, and then they were. And now just within the last couple days, they had to back off of that piece. But she is a permanent part of that list now. So, and she's just excellent to work with. So this year, they will not be participating in Thunder Run unless we do strictly a communications piece of it. But the airport will not be part of it because they have another event planned at that day.
Oh, so there is going to be some kind of event, preparedness event at 13 Whiskey this year?
Not a preparedness event. They just had arranged another event at the airport.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. I want to put in a quick plug for the value of the runways that we have on both Camino and Whidbey in case of an emergency. I think that really gets understated. And there is not much public support for the runways. I know there's some developers who just love to have that land. So just to this larger audience, keep that in mind, please.
Yeah, I saw Tara Rudolph on here, and she can attest to that as well. So yeah, I like the runways. I mean, just not even just the runways, just having that type of open space right there is such an asset. So I appreciate that plug right there.
Yeah. Oh, and I'll put in a plug for Tara and Sky as a former hangar resident there at South Whidbey. They've done a lot for that airport and really appreciate it. And thanks to them.
Great. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. All right. Give me 1 second, Jordan. I want to check the chat real quick. A lot of okay. A lot of the EMS and ER staff are invited / attend the Island County CD coffee hour meeting monthly as well for informal chats. So, all right. Yeah, we have, that's why it's really good to collaborate with all these different departments, because we all have our own little groups that we tend to discuss things with, and as well as our community outreach groups as well. So, and somebody had talked about silos, and I think we were, I think we were severely siloed in the past, and I think a lot of that is being rectified. We have more interaction, with public health, public works, human services. So, yeah, I appreciate those relationships. Jordan, another one of our frequent volunteers, Skagit Head.
Hi, Eric. Yeah.
Hi, Jordan.
So I came across something here just recently. It just crossed my mind. So I recently just got rid of my satellite TV, where I used to get all the national broadcast network, break-ins. And now that I'm no longer on that, I no longer get them because now I'm only streaming. Do we know why that is, or is that just the way the system is?
All right, so you no longer have satellite TV, so you don't get streaming now? Is that what you just said?
No. So I dropped Dish TV. When I got Dish TV, I was receiving the national broadcast system alerts.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm not on even the same channel I was before. So I wasn't sure if that was part of you or part of just the system.
I'll have to research that because that's part of the EAS system. That's not, I would not have influence over that. So when we send out an emergency alert system, it goes out to all the different media. So, I mean, every, TV, radio, whatever, it goes out to all of them. And then they make the decision on if to put it out, when to put it out, that kind of thing. So they are mandated when we have the monthly emergency alert system tests that they do have to play it and they set aside time for it. But I don't know why you're not getting in particular.
All right. Thanks, Eric.
Yep. All right. Let's see. So the only other hands I have are Bill and Jordan. And I think you guys already asked your questions. So do we have any other questions, last minute comments before I give you your time back and just thank you immensely for attending? All right. This has been recorded. In fact, I'm going to stop the recording now since we have no more questions. Stop recording. All right, so we will be putting a link on our website